Sitting with Andy Andrews, New York Times bestselling author, our own Tori Taff, and Gloria Gaither around a table with a good cup of coffee. And of course, any good conversation starts with aches and pains, right?
Have you noticed, for instance, nobody gets carpal tunnel syndrome anymore?
Oh yeah,
And that was everywhere.
everybody had
Yeah,
it. It was the tennis elbow of the night.
Yeah.
And
Nobody
what
gets
they
carpal
traded it in for now, I forget.
I
What's
got
the big
carpal
one now that everybody gets now? What's the one that Bill's got it?
Duplicitous contraction.
Duplicitous contraction.
Excuse me?
Contraction.
Or Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy
Yeah.
is popular. It's making a comeback.
That's right.
I got carpal tunnel I got a breastfeeding injury.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does
I have
Lotus
found
open
out
it?
that these nerves, they don't stay where they belong. You know,
That's-
you've got a nerve that
Yeah.
you get damaged. Okay, so I had my hip surgery, and I didn't know that the hip doctor evidently damaged the nerve, but they can't tell either. They scraped it or something, which didn't show up until 8 months later when I got my other knee done. So then I started getting excruciating pain.
In your hip?
In my hip.
Oh,
so
gosh.
I've got
That's
so
just mean.
much sympathy for people that are in pain all the time.
Me too.
But-
I do too. Because after my back thing, falling off stage.
On this ship, I had a massage yesterday, and I had no idea that nerve was connected to my neck and my arms and my shoulder. She was working on stuff, and my hip was killing me. Like, I'm going to jump off this table. It's like,
And slap you.
these nerves have children.
Relatives and
They're
neighbors.
never everywhere.
And it's
They're
like an
just-
electrical. It's like
Yeah, and you know, you don't want to get acquainted with one because then they bring all
All
their
their
relatives.
All the relatives, yeah.
You know, we are at that age where every conversation begins, ends, or somewhere in there is like, what hurts?
Yeah, remember when we used to talk our boyfriends, and now
Oh,
we
I
talk about
know.
our
And you
pain.
talk about ideas, and well,
You
you
know,
still do.
I'm
But
just-
now my ideas are about what hurts.
See, I am just making observations of myself now. Because, but I'm
I
making,
thought you was going to say,
no, I'm making observations of myself that other people have made first, like this. The boys, the other day I said something about my blonde hair, and the boys said, "Dad, your hair is white." And I said, "No, it's blonde." And they said, "Dad, your hair is white."
been blonde for years.
Yeah, and I'm like, no. I mean, when I look in the mirror, my hair is blonde to me. But then I saw a picture of myself, and I was like, when did my hair turn snow white? But it's so weird that I can't really look in the mirror and see that. And then last night, I'm looking at Reggie. I'm looking at Reggie Smith, and I realized something horrific, and that is, you know, Reggie is good looking and tall and blonde and straight nosed, and I realized Reggie is who I think I look like. And then I realized, no, I'm an older, uglier brother of Reggie. I'm like where
Reggie's math teacher.
I'm like where Reggie could say, "This is my brother. He's 20 years older now," and people would look at both of us and go, "Yeah, I could see that. I could see it." But I don't look like Reggie. But that's who I think I look like when I look in the mirror.
Yeah, try going bathing suit shopping after a certain age.
Yeah.
And you're a woman. You're just
You know, I think there's something to that. I think your brain does act as a filter, like you know about like photo filters. You know,
Goodness.
yeah.
yes.
Because they've done research on the audio side of stuff. Because when you set up a studio, you've set up studios, and you got to get it. They call it soundproof. That's kind of a misnomer, but you want to get it quiet.
Yeah.
And if people are doing this in their homes, they don't think about the refrigerator that makes noise 24/7 because your brain tunes out that frequency.
Can you get new filters for your brain? All that filtering you've done over the years?
Yeah, right.
Have you looked at different parts of yourself faced by and see parts of your parents that you always differentiated? My mom had a high arch foot like a dancer. She also had weird sharp bun in there. And then she also had, and I never did, I had little fat duck feet.
We have ducks, and I've never seen a fat duck. Wait.
It's a lot like splay is the word that comes to mind.
That's right.
Yeah. And I
Maybe
was
wide would be better.
wide. And I'm painting my toenails, which is not easy
But do
these
you have
days.
webbing between your toes? I'm just curious.
Not as
paint
much.
your toenails?
Not so you'd notice in
Your
flip flops. You can kind of work around that. But I'm looking down. It was like I have this arch and this point on the side of it that's sticking out the side of my boot. And it's like, that's my mom's foot. What is it doing at the end of my leg?
So I'm stuck back where you were painting your own fingernails and your toenails.
Well,
I had to
wasn't pretty.
send my toenails out.
There was a lot of this going on. It wasn't good.
What else can I do while I'm down here?
Yeah, because I'm not getting back.
And I
up
also
anytime
cut
soon.
my toenails. And when I actually go to have somebody do my toenails, I was like, who has been chewing on these nails?
Aging the final frontier. Yeah, because I'm
I
not
watched The Boys for a long time. You know, they're 24 and 21 now.
Wow.
But when they were getting around, 11, 12, I was watching them real closely for evidence that my nose might appear in them. And the reason is because it's like this nose you see, I didn't have this nose until puberty. I know that sounds very weird, but
Another nose
I had a normal nose because I remember in the 6th grade playing kickball, and a kid named Jeff was behind me, and I said something about his nose, and he said, "My nose? What about your nose?" And I thought, "What about my nose?" And I went home and I looked in the mirror and I went, "Oh my God, when did this happen?" And I was like, oh. And so I've watched The Boys, it's like through 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm like, okay, I think we're safe. I think they got Polly's nose. Okay. All right. I think we're safe. And they're good looking and look like Polly and not even a little bit like Reggie. So that's good. That's good. Polly.
When my girls were born, when Russ is beside me and they're literally being delivered, and he looked down, he went, "They've got my nose." And the doctor went, "All newborns have your nose, right?"
They get bumped on
It's
the way out.
it's a little squish there. Oh my gosh.
Let's do a setup piece for this.
Yeah. How do you set that up?
Good luck. What question are you going to
you
make
met
up?
us?
Homecoming radio on a boat in the middle of the ocean with Andy Andrews, New York Times bestselling author, and blonde, good-looking, straight nose. We're going to talk about that. Hey,
Yeah.
Tori Taff. Tori, I always say, Tori, you're our soft feminine side of the show, but who's sitting next to you?
The softer, more feminine side of the entire Gaither outfit. That's it. And the brainy one. That's right.
We would have invited Bill for this interview, but he doesn't have double initials, and so only people with double initials are allowed at this table.
That's true. Gloria Gaither, Tori Taff, Andy Andrews. I see where you're going.
Oh, great observation.
That really
that
is.
that should make us throw us together for a major program.
Matching tattoos.
Homecoming radio.
In fact, on this Gaither cruise, Andy spoke a couple hours ago, and I want you to talk about that one line that you said about history versus the past.
Yeah,
What's that line?
It's a distinction that needs to be made that not many people make. You and I have talked about this, Gloria, that the past is what actually happened. History is just what somebody wrote down. And so every time I write a book, I get into this deep discussion with the fact-checking editors because they're saying, well, we can't find this and so and then Wikipedia says this. And I'm like, I know. And I'm like, look, you got to understand how history is created. The past is, but history's created. And 1,000 years ago, if there was a battle, then all the people came home from the battle and everybody told their kids about the battle, and then kids had kids, and so granddaddy told people about the battle. And this went on for 500, 600, 700 years until finally somebody decided to write a book about the battle, and they wrote a book about the battle, and people started reading it, and somebody said, "That's not what my granddaddy said." And so they wrote a book too. And after a couple of 100 years, there's like 200-300 books about the battle. Then the internet comes up, puts them all in there. And so now you can find anything you want, but you have to be discerning about what the truth is, and you have to figure out what makes sense that would have happened. But you also want to use it to make your point.
Because story is truer than fact.
Yes.
Fact is what happened once. Story is what always happens.
Right.
Yes. Ooh, that's true.
So, like Proust's Swan's Way, the only truth really is in hindsight, because while you were experiencing it, you didn't get all the nuances of what came before, what came at the side, what came at that side, what came after. But now you look back and say, that little thing that happened, there was a great quote that says, great doors swing on very small hinges.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
you look
that's
like, and
good.
I'm a journal. I think you're all journal keepers here. And I'm not a diary keeper. I just write when I want to write. But I write down something that is like, I fried bacon today, that kind of thing. Then I look back, and there's another page that said we had to go to the Dove Awards or whatever, Grammys or whatever. Then I look back and I said, oh my word, that bacon day, little did I know. That bacon would be $7.65 a pound, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the time, you don't understand that you ate bacon every day. Well, now we don't eat bacon every day. So the perspective changes. And when I look back at my journal, I say, whoa, that little moment I almost didn't write down. My whole future swung on that moment.
Yeah.
It's curious to me that fiction has to ring truer than nonfiction. Because nonfiction, if somebody could write this nonfiction thing and that birds quit flying one day and they all walked around and no birds flew at all that day. And you look and go, well, it's nonfiction. I guess that happened, and you just keep reading. But if somebody puts that in a fiction book, you're like, well, that's stupid. That would never happen. And so when you're writing fiction, it has to ring true.
Forever. Always true. And that's the difference between history, which you were talking about, in the past. Yeah. History in the past. What ends up being history that matters are the stories that people like. My grandfather told me that thing about the Civil War. Well, nobody saw that but him. But when he tells it, everything swings on that moment. That's good. I like that history. That's good.
Gloria Gaither, Tori Taff, Daniel Britt, Andy Andrews. By the way, Observations and Answers is his tagline, and I love that. Andy Andrews and Wisdom Harbor, both places you can go and grab the podcast and whatnot. And one thing, I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've heard, and I'd love for you to explore this. We were talking about coffee and espresso, and some around the table don't care for just straight espresso. They like lattes or whatnot. Well, as I understand it, the term Americano, have you heard this?
Yeah, I've heard the term.
Okay, the term for Americano. As the story goes, during the war, the American soldiers were in Europe, and espresso is very common in Europe. The soldier went in to order coffee, gave him espressos, too strong. Not used to the American palate, right? So he watered it down with hot water and made it palatable for the American, and so that's where it got the name Americano.
Wow.
It is literally watered down espresso. That's what it is.
Whose grandson remembered that?
Exactly. That's my point. Did it really happen, or is that just a story?
No, I think that really happened. I think a lot of times there are stories that people create to explain a gap. I think people go, how in the world could that have happened? And then somebody says, well, maybe so-and-so and so-and-so. And then that kind of gains ground. And, it's a plausible urban myth. And so
It makes sense. Coffee and Europeans is that they don't think that you should savor coffee.
No.
They think you should down it like medicine and go.
right.
And I'm just
Get
saying,
it in there.
I'm having my coffee. That means I'm not downing and going anywhere.
I gotta say, I'm kind of with them. Because I don't like the taste that much, and for people to go, I'll have decaf. I'm like, seriously, this does not taste good enough to have it without the drug. If you're not going to have the caffeine, what's the point? And it's funny to me that people will say stuff like about coffee. They'll say, well, if I go, I don't really like coffee, they say, well, you have to develop a taste for it. And I'm like, okay, now think with me here. I don't like something. And so what I should do is drink a lot of it so I can develop a taste for it. Why would I want to develop a taste for something I don't like?
So because it's so good when you get over it.
I guess. But you know, No-Dos came out in the 70s, and you can take a caffeine tablet too.
Well, I'm just saying, if you want coffee that's decaffeinated, get Post. You know, I'm from Michigan, and we had Post cereal, and they took all those grains they didn't know what to do with, and they made a coffee out of it during the war where you couldn't get coffee.
Right.
So they made a cereal coffee called Postum. And I grew up drinking that because little kids can have it.
What does it taste like?
Bad
Post them.
coffee.
It tastes like
Tastes
nothing
like,
else.
tastes like
Nothing
bad
but-
coffee or old cereal, one or the other.
My mother would put sugar and cream in it, and then I get to have, quote, kids' coffee.
Yeah.
So I went and bought some the other day just to remember Postum.
Was it still there?
Get it in the
I've seen it, but did it bring back, was it like battle lines when it brought back all these memories from this one taste?
It was not coffee.
You know, during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, especially in the South, chicory became a substitute.
Yeah.
But
Louisiana, right?
and you can still get some.
Yes,
It is.
some root.
And you
Yes.
can still, community coffee out of Louisiana still has chicory, a blend.
I always get it for Christmas from somebody from the South.
Yeah.
Right,
I think you're going to like it.
Yeah.
And I think I should send it back.
Yeah. Well,
You can mix it with your coffee,
I have
though.
to re-gift it.
Right.
Let me
It's
tell
like
you
a
this.
fruitcake.
Try it with Posta. You don't know.
Postum, there you go.
Chicory during the Civil War was a step up because what they had been using was roasted ground acorns. And if you and of course knowing that and being a crazy outdoor crazy teenager and having boys the same way, we have tried that. And so we have roasted acorns, and you just think persimmons are bitter. You know, I mean, this is the most bitter thing, the tannins in those acorns. Now, you can get acorns from a white oak that aren't as bitter, but on the bitter scale, they're still too bitter.
Wow.
But I'm thinking that when they started doing a substitute for coffee, now considering what we already talked about, I'm thinking when they started doing the substitute, they tried different things and they were going, no, this is not bad enough. No, this give it ground up some acorns. Yeah, put some shells in there. Yeah, this is horrible. This is
Now
a
we're
good
getting there.
substitute.
We're getting there.
Well, maybe the reason is that if you grind up the root,
Ew.
it's going to be bitter. But if you get it distilled into a seed, then it's really bitter.
Really bitter, yeah.
I don't know if I should say this, but I don't know any other opportunity I would ever have
Let
to
me
say
just
this.
say, let me say this about that. If you ever say, I don't know if I should say this, we three vote yes, you should.
Yes, absolutely.
I grew up in Georgia, and we had
sorry? I'm
we
sorry?
had Georgia. We had
I'm
acorns.
sorry? I'm sorry?
Georgia. I grew up in
no,
Georgia.
I'm not saying I can't hear you. I'm just sorry you grew up in Georgia.
We had acorns coming out our ears, and as a kid, I thought they're plentiful. Couldn't we do something with them except for slip and fall on them? And so I asked my grandfather. I said, "Hey, crack this thing open. There's like a bright orange. I called it a meat in there." I said, "Can you eat this?" He said, "I guess you can eat anything you want."
Thank you, Granddaddy.
That's right. I don't know if it'd be good, but go ahead and try it. I said, "Well, the squirrels are eating it. Why can't we eat it?" And so I cracked an acorn and I ate it. One, and that was all it took.
Yeah.
Nah.
Live
You
to tell.
didn't grind up peach pits?
Well,
you had all
yeah,
those
we had
peaches.
Peach seed jellies, and
If you take a hammer and crack those open, there's
There
a
is
nice
a
little nut in
Peach
there.
pits have poison in them?
Well,
That's
if you're going to nitpick.
Yeah.
my diary says that we can't feed it to Windsor.
Oh.
So if I'm figured if Windsor can't eat it, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the rationale he had with the squirrels and the acorns. You see where that got him?
Yeah.
You know, Adam, my youngest son, when he was like 11, had a business called Adam's Acorns.
wow.
And he sold tons of acorns.
Or,
The big ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tons of them for animal food.
oh, because I was going to say, it sounds like a lot of
Sold them in
supply, not much
10-pound bags. And
And you dump it in your backyard, and the squirrels all congregate to one place,
Or the
and they
deer.
don't eat the bird feed.
There you go.
it's for deer, you know.
Yeah, right.
People throw them out for deer. So, and then the small acorns for turkeys.
That's an entrepreneur spirit.
Well, I had told him, I said, come up with something that you don't have to make or you don't have to buy. something that the profit is all yours.
There's
That,
no underhead for the overhead, right?
exactly. And all he had to do was go
Look around.
pick them up. And he had,
You know what you should sell? Those giant pine cones you have down there, because they are gorgeous in a big copper kettle under your stairway.
yeah, that's true. He's fishing now.
Yeah, I was
though,
going to
so-
say you lost that window of opportunity.
You know what we have in the South that people that I'm finding that people in the North do not know what it is. I still have a hard time believing, and that is lighter, kindling from a lighter stump. Do you guys know what that is? Okay.
Can you spell it?
Well, it's lighter, Lighther. It's
Like a tree?
It's a pine tree that has been cut 15, 20 years earlier, and the root system continues to produce, and it continues to just bury that sap up in that stump. And so when it stops doing that 4 or 5 years after the tree's been cut off, then it just kind of shuts down.
Yeah.
And if you find one of those stumps, just either cut it off and then split it or hack it up. Now, you do it in sticks, about 10 or 12 inches long and about as maybe big around as 2 fingers. You take that, it's called a piece of lighter. Old guys call it lighter, call it kindling. But you take a piece of that, put a match to it. The second you put a match to it, it's like, and it's burning and sizzling. And that's what we all use in our fireplaces.
It should be a pine, right?
Oh, it's fine, yeah. Yeah.
Because that didn't work when we cut off a dead, quote, oak tree. And I like to leave the stumps so that I can put bird feeders on top of them.
Right.
Okay, but no, it didn't work. Sprouts came out of that oak tree, and we call it our oak bush. And there are 10 arms that came out of that dead stump, and now it is 20 feet tall and as thick as an oak tree, but it's an oak bush.
Wow. Yeah, kindling. Another thing people call it is fatwood.
I've heard of that.
Little derogatory. I only know kindling of all this vocabulary.
Yeah. Plow and Hearth sells it, but you can get a little roll of kindling about as big as both of your arms for $15.
Yes. Just
Or
start a
you
fire.
can, or
with the other
Gloria,
firewood.
or Gloria, you can go find a stump and get a bulldozer and pull it out of the ground.
There you go.
We have a guy whose name is Martis Overstreet, and Martis is
Martis?
and he's the caretaker of the hunting camp. And Martis is all over that acreage, and so he finds them and pulls them up, and sometimes you'll come back and there'll be one of those KitchenAid huge containers, and he'll have it with just slap full of that fatwood. And the boys and I will open it up and we'll go, we are rich in kindling. We are billionaires in kindling. Nobody has this much kindling.
I'm figuring out that if the apocalypse happens, I want to be in his bunker because between the acorns and the kindling,
You could eat
we'd be
forever.
taking care. I know we'd be
You'd have
taking
a
care.
fire and food.
No
forever.
coffee, but
Yeah. Well, maybe if you grind it up, it'd be like chicory.
it'd be like stump
It would taste too sappy because it smells. I mean, it smells. How about this? Here's another southern thing that northern people haven't heard of: rabbit tobacco.
the kids would smoke it out behind the barn.
Now, see there's the first clue. Kids smoking it behind the barn. Have you ever heard of it, Gloria?
I've heard of it, but I've never smoked it behind the barn.
Okay, I have. Even though we didn't have a barn, I smoked it behind the barn when I was growing up. But
Pipe or no?
I have, yeah. But mostly I use I used to use torn up grocery sack. Where you tear a square out of a grocery sack and put the rabbit back in there and roll it up and then lick it.
Really want to smoke it.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't too long ago. We were riding around, and a buddy of mine who's older than I am, that grew up in the area, and I said, "Look at that." He said, "What?" I said, "Rabbit tobacco." He said, "What's that?" I said, don't tell me you grew up here and don't know what rabbit tobacco is. He said, I don't. What is it? And so I went and got it. And then I got to thinking, well, maybe that's just something that we picked up some weed and started smoking it when we were in the 5th grade. And then now we called it rabbit tobacco. And maybe we made that up.
I'm from Arkansas,
Right.
and I've heard of it.
So when I went home, I had it in the back of my truck, and the guy who works at my house to help me unload, and he said, "Is that rabbit tobacco?" I said, "Yes, it is." And so I went and I looked it up, and it's an herb that has been used for hundreds of years. And this guy, the Southern herbalist, I can show you the article, sent rabbit tobacco to a spectrograph with NASA to figure out all the different. And you would be shocked. And that's what I can't figure out is how in the world did the Indians know this would be good for
That if I saw it growing, what would it?
Yeah, but that's just what my question was. All right.
It's green in the summertime.
You have to render it.
We have to wait
get
till
it
it turns
smokable?
brown like tobacco.
You have to wait till it turns like white and gray. The little leaves turn white and gray. I've got a picture here, which is perfect for radio.
Gloria has a gift of description, so you go ahead. Fill them
Anytime I
in.
show pictures on radio.
Yeah,
Closed captioning for radio.
exactly.
I'm stuck back at white and gray leaves.
I'm stuck back at who looked at that among all the other weeds and went, let's wait till it turns white and gray and then smoke it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's not
Is
just,
it regulated?
No.
Sir Walter Raleigh should have known about this.
Exactly. If they make medicine or something out of it, that would make sense to me. But
There it is.
And we're seeing a picture now.
And so,
I have seen that. I
so
know
the,
exactly what that
the,
looks
the
like.
gray part down here, that's the part you strip off that stalk.
Leaves.
That's little
Has
leaves,
been.
and that's
Has
what you
been.
put
Kind
in
of
your
foliagey.
put in your pipe, or you put in your
Grocery sack.
grocery sack, or you put it in a tea. See, that's what Tommy.
Tea makes sense.
That's what Tommy
I
said.
wouldn't do
Tommy
it,
said
but-
my mom used to make us drink this stuff when we were sick, and I was like, really? He said, oh yeah. He said we always had to drink it when we were sick, and so I had done the research on it when I went inside and read all the things about it and read the
Okay, you've
spectrograph.
seen that.
And then it blooms, so that the
Yeah,
little
there's
furry
that.
things on top
Those
of
are
the
things
X
that fall back
blooms. Or,
down in
And make more
recede.
rabbit tobacco.
Rabbit tails.
And so,
Oh, maybe that's why it looks like a little
but-
bunny tail.
but so the next,
does it have a real name other than rabbit tobacco?
We are
the
deep
Cher-
into rabbit tobacco
the
right now.
Cherokee called it life everlasting.
Oh.
But Tommy said his mother made him drink it, when they felt bad. And so the next day, I told Polly, I said, I think I'm gonna drink some tea of this, because I was just fascinated that it cures asthma, antibacterial, antiviral. It affects ovarian tumors of all things. I mean, how?
You really were worried about that.
Yeah, right.
That kept him up nights.
He didn't want it.
So I clump up a bit in some hot tea, and I drank it, and it wasn't very good. No, it wasn't as bad as acorn tea.
You develop a taste for it.
Yeah. But 5 minutes later, I was throwing up, just like I had to find things to throw up. I was throwing up so bad. But then 5 minutes after that, I was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I was absolutely fine.
It was a detox.
Well,
It's like
I
dogs eating grass.
told Tommy, I said, I tried that rabbit tobacco tea and I threw up. He said, right. I said, what do you mean right? He said, well, that's what it makes you do. He said that word
Why
in
didn't they tell you that up
I
front?
know. He said that word in your description, purgative, that's what that means. I'm like, oh,
Very delicious.
Purgative was a tip off.
yeah.
I wonder if it would fix my mom's bunions on my feet.
I don't know. But smoking that, believe it or not, it would dry out your sinuses. I mean, not inhaling, just putting it through your nose. It dries out your sinuses, and it just bizarre
We don't have any more sinuses for years.
for years. But I bet you there's going to be tons of listeners that go, of course, I can't believe you guys hadn't heard of rabbit tobacco.
And 98% will be going, what are they talking about?
It won't be 98% because there's a lot of barns in these people's childhoods, and they've been behind them.
Yeah, I bet you're exactly right. Yeah, but those are pretty specific. It's outdoor stuff that looks like a weed, has a use. Acorn has a use. Is it Indian medicine that you got interested in?
No, I've always been interested.
Folklore, that's what it is.
That's right. I've always been interested in survival. And remember, I don't know if y'all remember, but when I was a kid, Grape Nut cereal had this guy.
Cereal.
That's
At
where
Post. Post and Kellogg's, yeah.
she worked. Yeah.
Did you know Yule Gibbons?
I remember you.
Do you remember him? He was the guy. He was the guy
I
that
worked
did
on that line all that time, and he never came by.
He had a book called Stalking the Wild Asparagus.
Yes.
And it was about how to eat dandelions out of your front yard.
How come you don't know about Robert Frost, but you know about that?
Because Robert Frost never did a Grape Nuts commercial and said, "Ever eat a pine tree? Some parts are edible."
I was looking for the tagline. That was it.
I always thought the tagline, "Ever eat a pine tree? Some parts are edible. Take, for instance, this tiny squirrel."
Why would you think that's a silly point?
But Yule Gibbons, you remember him?
Yeah. Grape Nuts flakes.
He promoted Grape Nuts. That was the commercial. "Ever eat a pine tree? Some parts are edible."
Well, I don't get the connection because I worked on that line, and it was just loaves of bread.
There were no pine trees.
Whole wheat bread.
Yeah.
And they baked it, and then they crumbled it all up, and then they poured molasses on it,
Okay.
and then they baked it again in the ovens, and then they crumbled that up some more, and
Now-
they've had some kind of vitamin powder that went on it, and then they put it in bags. And it was the hottest job in the whole factory because it was on the 4th floor with ovens.
All the
with
baking.
no air conditioning.
Oh my God. Now I want grape nuts.
See,
I want a big bowl of.
It's ice cream if you go visit.
I love
ate
grape nuts.
Grape Nuts for 3 years, and that's just the power of advertising because I didn't know what was in it. But Yule Gibbons, who could teach you to eat dandelions out of your front yard. No, he was just
making
referencing
an
the
observation.
outdoors, you know.
What did he die of?
I was curious, what do people die of? Because like Robert Atkins, he died of, the diet guy, died of a
Yes.
heart attack.
Yes.
Jim Fix,
The running.
running, died of a heart attack. But you know who's still alive is Chubby Checker, Fats Domino, and me. You know, and so I'm not so sure about all these.
This organic food may be not as good as it cracked up.
Yeah.
All right.
What dandelion greens are, because we took the butcher knife and cut them out of the backyard, and we ate dandelions all spring. Dandelion green, not like you get in the grocery.
No, but you make them like collard
Grocery
greens or something.
store dandelions?
Yeah, you can get them in bundles in the grocery store, but it's not.
Going around people's yards in the middle of the night?
Tell your son this is another way to make.
Low overhead. Yeah.
We're in and out of this. You know, this sweet and low package. We're in and out. It causes cancer. It doesn't cause cancer. It's the blue one that causes cancer. No, it's the yellow one. No, that pink one still causes cancer. How much cancer? It's just like, it's crazy. And I figure one day we're going to find out that cancer is just hereditary in laboratory mice. Right. That's what we're going to find out.
Well, yeah, coffee's good for you. Coffee's bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. And as Tori said, we have chased some rabbits on this segment, but it has been brought to you by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills, especially with the rabbit tobacco.
There you go. Rabbit tobacco provided for the cast and crew by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. And we're right here on the window of the Lido deck, and it's just
That Caribbean blue sea, as opposed to the Mediterranean blue, which is that navy. And this is just,
if you look around. I don't know if you guys have ever seen mama dolphins with babies, but if you look right over there, that's where they usually are. There don't seem to be any there today.
but what do they know? It's radio. We just saw 8 of them. Oh my gosh.
I know, but it's beginning to make me
adorable.
feel like Captain Ahab. I think I'll get my stump and go take a walk.
Well, Homecoming Radio has gone into international waters. We are now sitting on the Gaither Caribbean cruise. I am sharing a table with Andy Andrews, Gloria Gaither, Daniel Britt, and a very loud captain making announcements every once in a while. We are gazing out the window, and there is the most gorgeous, endless blue Caribbean blue sea in front of us with gentle little white caps. And background music would be really lovely right here if you kind of give me like a soundtrack. Thank you for joining us and wish you were here for real. We tried.
Is there a Poseidon adventure game?
I think we tried to put that out of my mind.
And that's the wonderful voice of Tori Taff. And by the way, Tori, I want you to look what's in my nicotine-stained fingers. Look at what I'm holding in my hand here. This is for Andy Andrews, who is also a New York Times bestselling author.
I have this book.
This is Gloria Gaither's very first book.
No way.
It still has the cover, but I don't think you signed it. It's called Make Warm Noises. Impact Books. Oh my gosh, this is a find. 1971. John T. Benson Publishing Company.
You know where that title came from? My little independent daughter, Suzanne, our first baby, she said, I want to be by myself. I'm in there. I want to read my book. I'm going to be by myself. Then she come out and she said, but make warm noises I can hear. She wanted me to stay in the next room or someplace close so she could be private. Yeah, I got it. So that's where that title came from.
Oh gosh, I remember this book. This is bringing back all kinds of memories.
So I wanted to bring this up because this was your first book, and then I've been reading, I haven't started this one yet, but I've been reading one that came a few years later that is written like a diary, like a journal. We have this moment. And it's fascinating because it does take a snapshot of everyday bacon cooking moments or big moments in Hollywood on a national stage or in the White House when President Reagan was shot. You were there. And it's what's fascinating. But the reason I bring it here today is at this time in your life, you're writing a blog on something called the internet, which in 1971 may not have been a word of the day, So for the aspiring authors or any creative or anybody with a pulse from 1971 with your first book to 2023, 24, 25 writing blogs, what would you go back and tell first-time author Gloria Gaither?
Well, I think I'd pick the title of what you said was a couple books later, which was called We Have This Moment. And I think if there has been a theme through our whole writing career, it has been, this ain't the rehearsal. It's the real thing. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Interesting in that book you mentioned, one of the chapters is about being in Kiryat Shimon, which is now in the news again as the border town between Lebanon and Israel. And we were there the night that they were being attacked. And in the front row of our concerts, everybody in Israel is a soldier. So all the young people in the front row had their guns across their laps in our concert, and we're singing. And then there was a siren and all of those young people that were in our concert got up and left with their guns to go and defend Kiryat Shimon. We had our baby. It was a Suzanne then, I think, probably, and maybe Amy. But we were in a cement block hotel with windows only high up along the ceiling level. And all night we saw the flashes of bombs being dropped and missiles being shot into Israel from Lebanon. And Lebanon that was the buffer town between the two because the Syrian army had attacked. So it's like everything I'm watching on the news right now is like rerun, including the name of the town that's in that journal. Little did we know.
Andy, have you ever been a journaling person? Do you document, run the regular?
I do. I'm not as regular as I should be. I get an idea and I get it in my mind, and then I have to sit down to work it out. I can work it out on paper. People have said, well, can't you just dictate your... So I can't dictate my writing. Can you? You guys?
No.
No, I have to have a pen, and I can't write on a computer.
Yeah,
I can't put a machine between me and my ideas. So I still use a yellow legal pad.
Yep.
And I like to go, if I'm writing someplace, I like to go in a little cafe or something and get in the corner where I can hear people talking and watch people. And a lot of song titles have come out of what I observed,
What you hear.
that I've heard. One was a bunch of young people had gone over to Nantucket, where had gone to write, and they'd come from New York and Boston, and they were trying so hard to be cool and to be, pick up each other really. And I'm sitting there thinking, they don't have a clue how loved they are. They're so lost. They're so in need of, as Bill said, intimacy. They're looking for that, but they don't even know what it is. And I did a whole song on, Daughter, Did You Know How Much I Loved You? Was it Henry Nouwen that said, what would be the thing that you think Jesus would say to you if you could hear him say one thing? And he said, did you know how much I loved you? So much of my writing has come out of distractions while I'm trying to write.
I have such respect for the fact, when I look back now and I think of 1971 and when you were writing Make Warm Noises, you were a young mother with a career and a baby. And I was trying, and I was an older mother when I had my little bitty ones. And I was trying so hard to just live it, in the idea of chronicling it at the same time, much less in such an elegant, beautiful way to do it. I have such respect for at the time when I first read this in the 70s, I was thinking, oh, that's so sweet. I didn't have children. I was thinking all those feelings she's describing, I don't really know. I bet my mom probably felt that way about me. But when I look back now in hindsight, I think, how did you do that?
Interesting, that particular book, if you look at the titles, it's all stuff that one of our kids said as really babies. And when Bill and I were first married, and then we talked about having a baby, Bill said, I don't know, what we have is so beautiful. I don't know, will it ruin it to have a child now? Will it ruin what we have? And I thought, I'm such a hermit. I mean, I need my time with reading. I need my time with the Lord. I need my thinking time. I need my processing time. If I have a baby, I'll never have a brilliant thought again. And most of these things are out of that baby, what she said to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, what I thought I was giving up, she gave back to me in spades. And that's been true in every stage of our life. We'll think, okay, this will ruin our life.
Yeah.
If our life's so good now, would it ruin?
This will change everything.
Yeah.
And it does.
And we were 20 years not having a dog. Yeah. So we said, okay, we had the dogs and we had them when we had kids, and it was like and then we had COVID. Yeah. And so we had a year and a half where concerts were scheduled and canceled. This cruise was canceled.
Yes.
Everything was canceled. And Bill said, we're in the transition part of our lives. Maybe we should get a dog. I was like, oh, it might ruin our life. And it's like, no, we're home a lot more now. And then right up to bringing on this cruise, a puzzle of Windsor, our dog.
And the next best thing.
And he has been such a gift. He's just so hysterical. He's so smart and sensitive. And it's made us like each other better.
Both of your eyes soften when you talk about Windsor. And Bill is like an obnoxious grandfather.
He is obnoxious.
Look, here's a picture. Look, here's a picture.
But, we sit on each side of the kitchen in the morning, and we have time now that our kids are grown to actually read the news, read the Bible, talk to each other about the kids, talk to the kids. We have that time in the morning, and I tell people at the office, I'm going to have you killed if you call me before 10 o'clock.
Yes.
That's our time.
Yeah.
And Windsor pulls up his little bed and sits between us. He loves a conversation. If he were here, he'd be sitting right there going, looking.
Yeah.
And he loves this conversation tone. Can't explain it. So he sits there as long as we will sit there. He may be starving. He may have to go to the bathroom. Doesn't matter. We're having a conversation. And it's like, this is just the sweetest time of our lives. In a way, we paid dearly for this time. So I'm not going to miss it.
Well, here's my observation. I think for any communicator, it's probably the easy way out is to find something very generic to appeal to the masses. I'm going to try to hit everybody with this wide angle. But I think with Tori's writing, We Will Stand. That's an example. Gloria, your example of the Israel thing. Andy with the heart mender. I mean, you've got something very specific, a story there. But in the particular,
in the particular, there is the universal.
Yeah.
And what you are writing in a blog, or a journal, whether it was back in the 70s or 80s, you probably pick it up today and say, well, not much has changed. Or that reminds me of what's going on today. We Will Stand made that resurgence.
At the time,
Yeah.
And songwriting is such a specifically different genre.
That is interesting, Tori, because I used to think exactly what Daniel just said. If I wanted to appeal to the masses, I had to be very general and, not be real specific. And I found out that the more specific I am, the more universal. Mm-hmm. For example, we went to Europe. I didn't speak the language. It was in Sweden. And, Swedish looks like somebody took a handful of alphabet macaroni and threw it against a sign, because I have romance language background, but not those languages. But we went into a little cafe, okay, with oilcloth tablecloths, and this woman with an apron, and everybody that ran the cafe was, of course, related. They always are.
And gorgeous, probably.
And she picked up a red and white checkered rag, like everybody does, and wiped off the counter.
Right.
And I said, everybody that is a woman grabs a checkered rag and wipes off the counter. That's what we do. And I connected with her with my eyes, and she knew I knew that it's our job.
Yeah, woman to woman.
To wipe off the counter.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do it with a red and white checker.
That's specific in the general.
And I don't care if you're in Russia or if you're in Sweden or if you're in America or if you're in New York or if we're in LA. You can be as sophisticated or as uneducated as you may be, but you still grab a rag and wipe off.
We're still cleaning up the messes.
It's amazing the connections we can find all over the world. This cruise was canceled because of COVID, and that whole thing about where did COVID come from, and the Wuhan in China, and it's like nobody really knew until somebody finally figured out that COVID spread so fast all over the world because of red and white checkered cloths that had never been washed, but were continually wiping the same counters. That's
true.
That explains so much.
I think they're doing it in China.
Songwriting specifics versus blogging. I love your blog, and it is an extension of the kind of writing. It's what you've always done, but I blogged for about 8 years. And I look back now, and it is a journal because it was when the girls were a certain age, and it was my favorite kind of writing because I'm a relentless self-editor. Having a computer between me and my hand it frees me because I can move entire sections instead of scratching out and rewriting. And so I can put that over here, and then I can bring it back in and go, it's an ending. It's not a beginning. But that kind of writing, how does that feel different to you from books, from songwriting, because it's kind of short essays, but then it's kind of a little different than just a collection of essays.
It is the old literary form that we called essays. Yeah. But for me, all of life is connecting the dots.
Yeah.
The big dots to the little dots. For me, for the blog, it is a series of small aha moments.
Yes. I get it.
And for me, the minute I connect a dot, that is what I live for. And to help connect the dot for maybe somebody else who doesn't see the connections, that is the ministry of it, whether it's a song or whatever. That kind of writing is a little different from song titles, except I maintain that songwriting is the most distilled of all kinds of writing and the most disciplined, because you have to write to the meter of music. And that music has to fall on exactly the right nuance of the sentence, the rhythm of the sentence.
Yes.
You don't put a downbeat on a preposition, for instance. Downbeats come on nouns. Yes. And the moving between the downbeat and the next beat is the verb. That's the movement. So it's really disciplined writing, but it has to sound as if you're just talking off the top of your head. Billy Joel is the best at this. Absolutely. because he uses every writing mechanism that you can use and you never notice. He just sounds like somebody talking on the street in New York. And that's genius.
That is true.
So other stuff, I have a lot more freedom with a blog.
That's the
whatever. If I'm writing a poem, I can make 65 verses if I want.
Exactly.
But with a song, I've got 3 minutes and maybe a verse and a refrain.
Maybe a bridge.
The refrain says, "This is what I want you to know. Take this home. You know, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone." Okay? Really, right now, when everybody's scared to death out of their skin, I was like, okay, love gets rid of fear. It just does. It just does. So if you're dwelling on fear, you don't love enough, or you're not accepting love enough. Bottom line, done.
Wow. I love the essays because I always imagine, now this is just me imagining this, but I always imagine that Gloria's got a songwriting session with Bill or Michael W. Smith or Buddy Green or whoever she writes with, and then she's got a book she's working on. But when she's alone in the morning, waiting on Bill to come in for coffee, she has this idea, and it's not going to fit into the song. It's not going to fit into the book. And he goes, but that's important. And because I love the essays that you do that go back to what your grandmother and your mom and dad did, and you bring that into your children today. I mean,
That line.
yeah.
I'll tell you, how long have I been studying the Bible? Since I was 4. Literally, I heard enough gospel from the membranes of my mother's womb to save the world. But the other day, we're in the middle of Indiana, right? So there are seeds everywhere. Carloads of wheat and big, huge silos full of corn. And I was like, said, seeds are everywhere. So I went to reread the creation story. And I don't know how I missed this all this time, but the third day of creation, after earth and the water got separated and there was a sun and a moon, the third day was seeds. And the seeds were made before the hunger. So God gave us the harvest before we were created. And I was like, oh my word, I never noticed that the third day of creation was to give us seeds. So, I mean, that changes everything.
Yeah.
That changes everything. The seed, which came first, the chicken or the egg? The egg.
Yeah.
Because seeds are everywhere. The seeds God created first. So I'm looking around in harvest time, Indiana, and I'm seeing seeds are everywhere. Everything seeds. Acorns are everywhere. You know, I'm trying to crack open a peach seed so I can make a peach tree for Bill next year. And I was like, oh my word, I'm inundated with seeds. So says to me, look at our world right now. I don't know what our need is going to be, but it's going to be grave. It's going to be huge. No matter. Seeds are everywhere. They're already here. The food's here. The plants are here. The regrowth of the world. And I firmly believe that the earth itself will have a burnover. And out of that burnover, like anybody that tells you in a forest fire, out of that burnover is going to come a new heaven and a new earth. And they're all going to be together. We're going to have a new earth. Because this earth is full of seeds.
Yeah. That is incredible.
What rich, fun conversation and surprising twists and turns around this table with a blue ocean outside this window. It's the Gaither cruise. And these kind of, Bill likes the word serendipitous, right? These kind of moments seem to happen when you least expect them. Andy Andrews, Tori Taff, Gloria Gaither, you guys have been great.
This is why I must go on these cruises. This is why I must be here, because I like 10 years ago was in a room with Bill and Gloria and Tori and Russ and David Phelps, Sonia Isaacs and Jimmy Geary. We sat and talked for like 5 hours, and I know, and I thought that wasn't just worth my trip; that was worth my year.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, you know, I've managed to like worm my way on to the cruise. Beg Gloria, please talk to Bill.
I was on that bus, every weekend for 40 years, pretty much. 20 years with the trio. And then I quit so I could finish my degree. And then Bill discovered a television camera and we did the homecoming thing.
And
So that was
she's
another
back.
20 years. But I only went, well, not only, but mostly went because of coffee in your pajamas with your hair sticking straight up and no makeup on the bus doing this.
Yes.
To whoever's up and whatever, donut or cereal or whatever. We have a coffee machine. And those first 2 hours of the day, were worth 40 years of traveling.
Yeah.
And it always went like today, from hysterical laughing about whatever, didn't matter, possum or weeds, to earth-shaking moments of insight and sharing with each other. And then we all took that and went and did,
Yes.
In moments that forwarded your ministry and forwarded your writing.
Opened your mind and opened your spirit. There's smart people who I really admire, and then there's wisdom. And there are people who are facile with language. They are able to turn a lovely phrase. And then there's deep wells. And you guys, since I've known you, have been able to gather deep wells around you. And we end up having these kind of moments that are just priceless. And last night you gave one of those to my daughter. It's when you see these kids coming up, and they used to be the ones running around, and now they're ones sitting at the table that are just mesmerized by what you're saying and walk away with something.
Right.
That's wealth. That's what wealth looks like.
I'm going to pick up on something since you brought up Maddie Rose. Can I tell this story?
Sure.
She was an infant, and we had an artist retreat. And Sandy was there, I think. Amy Grant was there. Mylan, just young artists were there. And we had, and our come together time, we never had a speaker. We had somebody that would be willing to say something if it was demanded, and not if it wasn't. So we were in this kind of worship time singing together, and Russ is the child of an alcoholic and also the child of an enabler of an alcoholic who was in ministry. And so he has fought that all his life. And I have never known anybody as persistent for wholeness as Russell. No matter what his failures, he would get up and say, this is not going to define my life. And I do not want to pass this on to another generation. So he had Maddie Rose, and we were there, and he said, would y'all come, and I would like you to anoint Maddie Rose's baby. So we said, what do we got? So somebody went and got some olive oil out of the kitchen, and we had this little bowl of olive oil. So we're all going around anointing this little baby's head. And he said this, she looked like a grease pig when we got done with her. We got all done with it, and he said, I want you to pray for this baby. She must get the blood of Jesus in her veins. If she gets my blood, she will be in trouble. But if she gets the blood of Jesus, she will be whole, and my whole life would be worth being that bridge between total dysfunction and beautiful wholeness. Never forget that. So we all anointed poor little Maddie Rose. Okay, last night at the dinner, now she's 31, and she's been running around with the kids, and she grew up with our kids, and they're all out there doing their thing, and she's on this cruise. And so I was put together, and Bill said, put together a table of people, and so we did. And I said, since Bill wasn't going to be there, he was really tired because we came right on the cruise and did 2 concerts. So I said, I want Maddie Rose in that circle, because it was Mark Lowry and Sandy Patty. And so here is this baby sitting beside me that I've watched grow up since she was a grease pig at the artist. And I just sat there in my spirit and said, thank you, Jesus. Thank you for this angel, and I will never leave her or forsake her. I will not. I will not. Because she has been mandated wholeness and the blood of Jesus. And I don't care what she does on her journey to get there. She's sealed. She's sealed.
And she's getting it.
I just love that child.
Oh, I remember you when she was crying and you took her out to walk her and you came back in and you handed her over gently and you went, I have never seen a child fight sleep harder in my life. It was death before sleep. She didn't want to miss anything.
I just happened to think that time that I mentioned 10 years ago when we were all in there, David Phelps' sister was ill and was going downhill, and Gloria made a comment, said, David, she's getting ready to breathe again. She's getting ready to, this body is going away, and she's gonna go to another place and take her first breath. And Jimmy Geary and I caught each other's eye across the room, and when that was over, I said, I'm writing that in a story. And that is chapter 14 in the Notice of Returns, where Jones is explaining to the guy about his wife. And we're on another cruise, the next cruise we're on, and Jimmy and I wrote a song, Getting Ready to Breathe. And when we got through with it, we played it for Wes Hampton, and Wes said, I got to do that. Well, this past year, Wes recorded it, and now it's like one of the most played songs on Sirius XM, Getting Ready to Breathe, Wes Hampton. So
That's what happens from sitting at these tables.
The world is full of seeds.
yeah, full of seeds.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, buddy. Thank y'all.